Hi guys, I am Nu-Trix, and today we're following on a series that I started probably 2 years ago and I never finished it. Somebody asked about it this last week, asking about what about Synthesis 101 video about the LFOs and envelope. Well, here it is. This is today's topic. Now, in a synthesizer, the option of having LFOs and envelope is very important because it creates movement and life into the sound. Now, let's just, before I go into demos and explaining how to use them, let's actually talk about the concept of the two. Now, remember, if you watch the other videos, and their link should be somewhere here, in a synthesizer, I basically describe it as there's two types of circuit. There's pieces of a hardware that create sound, so they're audible if you want, they're part of the audio path, and there's manipulators or controllers or modifiers, okay? And these pieces of equipment, part of the circuit, are not pieces that we hear. They're actually moving apart, and we hear the result of the modulation, if you want. So that's why we call them modulation. They will modulate, they will change the value of something that we hear. But itself, imagine the LFO and the envelope are basically like a hand, an extra hand that goes in and moves a knob for you. That's what these are for. Now, the movement of the hand is different from LFO to envelope. The envelope is only once, usually, because it could be cyclic. But in I would say a traditional envelope would play once, meaning when you trigger the note, it will trigger the attack, decay, sustain, and release for an ADSR envelope. Well, we'll go more into that, but an LFO is a low frequency oscillator. So it's an oscillator, but we don't listen to it. It's super slow, super low in frequency, and it oscillates. So there's a cycle to it. The difference between an LFO and an envelope is that the LFO is cyclic. It will just move and move and move. The same movement of your knob will be in a cyclic mode. Now, the movement itself depends on the shape of the LFO. Is it square? Is it triangular, sawtooth, whatever it is, it will change the way your value move. Is there steps? Is it just gliding? Is it gliding up, gliding down, or up and down? Many different options. And in some cases, and VST plugins of synthesizer, you would have the option of even drawing your LFO in some cases. So it can be very complex. Now let's go back to envelope. We said that the envelopes are playing just once. There's many types of envelopes. There's the ADSR, which is the most common one. There's the A hold DSR, so there's a hold value. So you press the attack and it stays there for a little time, and then it drops into the decay. So attack, decay, sustain, release is the most common one. There's attack and release, there's attack and decay. There's some that has no sustain, mostly because they're percussive sounds, drum for examples. And there's other type of envelope like the one you find in all of the JV, 2080, 1080, the XV from Roland, the D50 if I'm not mistaken. You have these are not called attack, decay, sustain, release anymore. These are time and level. So there's you start from 0, you take some time to go to a level number 1. Then from that level number 1, you take some time to go to another level. Another level, you go to sustain. Another sustain, you go. So there's always time level, time 1 level 1, time 2 level 2, time 3 level 3, time 4 level 4, and release. You know, basically. And again, software synthesizer. In some cases, you can have 64 different times and level. So it can be very complex. Of course, to play a traditional instrument, these are way too complex for nothing. It's more for creating soundscapes and effects and some weird stuff that could be really cool. But if you want to play an instrument, the LFO is really interesting because it creates movement in the timbre. And the attack, decay, sustain, release is, you press a key, it triggers the sound, and it becomes less obvious. So it is really the way to work. Now let's actually go in and use the MicroFreak to test how this works. Okay, so let's start with this. You have, I selected a init patch, okay. Let's start with the envelope. You have the attack, decay, sustain, release. An envelope that is neutral, or that's right here. An envelope that is to the neutral value, or an init mode, would have 0 attack, 0 decay, 0 release, and a maximum sustain. So what you have is an on-off switch. When you press on it, you have maximum value when you release, instant, it stops right away. Okay, if you want some movement at the beginning, if you wanted to open it gradually, you see graphic up there here. Okay, take more time to get in. If you want more time for the decay also, when you release, if you wanted the attack to be fast but the decay long, you get. So it's more or less something we're hitting. It's going fast. If you want the sustain to be lower, then you've got, you see the attack, decay, sustain, release. Let's say we go a bit faster here. So the beginning of the sound is louder, softer, stays, release. Now if you want to assign this to the filter, and you bring down the filter cutoff point, you hear the filter does that movement. It opens up, comes down to the sustain value. If I bring the sustain up, let's say you like this, but you don't want the attack to be so bright. So you bring the amount of modulations. This is the amount of filter being modulated from the envelope. Half of it, let's say. It opens up and not as much, so you don't get all the high frequencies. Let's say this is what I want. I want it duller or more muffled or open up. Okay, so that would be for the envelope, the traditional attack, decay, sustain, release, and the filter. In this case, there's one knob for the decay and release, which is the same value. In other synthesizers, you would have one for the decay, one for release that would be separate, which is more powerful. But in this case, it still works really well. So let's turn that off for now. I'm going to have filter open up maximum again. Okay, now let's use the LFO in this case. The LFO is here. You have the shape. This is the LFO section. The shape and the rate. If you click on it, in this case, you can have sync off or on. And let's say we don't put it to sync for now. If you want to assign this to the cutoff point, let's say we want to do that. Well, let's actually try, cutoff point. Let's do that. You have to go into the matrix and select the point that links cutoff to LFO. So I'm going to turn this until I get to the LFO cutoff point, press on it, and then I can change to the maximum value, which is 100. So while it closes, it opens, but it stays to the maximum. Let's say we put the cutoff point at the minimum, in the middle. If you change the speed, in a way. So hear the movement. You want it to be. Now, the shape that you hear, the movement, is the movement of the shape of the LFO. If we change the shape, it's close, but the tips are more direct. In this case, we got a sawtooth now. It's going up. Say, well, I would like to have this, but going down. Oh, you go back into the matrix here. Okay, you verify you're in the right place. And then, whoops, sorry, I'm going to go back to LFO, cutoff, and instead I'm going to put it down, minus 100. So now the movement is the other way around. It still draw the same way, but it's playing it down, in inverse. Then you got the square wave, and you got two values, up, down, or the other way around. Now, if you don't want this to be as much, because now it's too wide of a spread, go back to the matrix, diminish the value here. Let's say put it at 27. You hear the two LFO or filter value. Okay? Now if we go to sample and hold, so this is kind of a random shape, but with steps. If you change the speed, could be really interesting and using this, but then you go, well, this is not synced to the tempo. So you press sync here, you press on it, now it's sync on. Now if I change this, now it's in musical value. 1/16 of a note, 1/8 of a note, 1/4 of a note, half a note, and a whole note, and then 2 note, 8 note. So let's say you want it on tempo on and then the next one is same logic, but this one is a noise shaped. It's like a sample and hold, but without these steps. It's just gliding. It's gliding. Okay? So this can be assigned to whatever you want. In this case, it's a low pass. It's kind of the obvious thing. A lot of people do. You'll go here, and you put it slow. And you don't give too much. And what you have... You have the attack you hear, and then you have the movement of the LFO. And then the LFO is still moving. So now we're combining this with this on the same destination, which is the LFO. It could be something else. It could be, let's say I'm in, let's say I'm going to basic wave. I'm going to go analog. I'm going to select, no, basic wave, yeah. So this is the symmetry of the wave. So I want to assign this. I'm going to go assign. I'm going to turn the knob to assign it. And I'm going to go LFO assign to here. So open this. Open it up completely. So what we hear now is this thing changing. So we hear this knob moving now. Okay, so I'm exaggerating, but you hear the movement in this. So it's really powerful. And this is where the matrix, when you see any type of matrix on a synthesizer, that's where it really it shines, because you can assign these things to whatever you want. In the case of the Microfreak, these last three can be assigned to whatever you want. So this is really powerful. Of course, they have the basic stuff: pitch, wave, timbre, and cutoff, which is the stuff you, wave is this one, timbre this one. Actually, you already have timbre, so I don't need to assign this, but you know, I could. And so you can assign it to shape, you can assign it to rise, you can assign it to, so you could have the LFO change the decay, for example. And that is pretty awesome, because every time you play it, the decay will be different. So let's say we assign this to this, okay? And then we're going to go press here. So what do we have here? I'm going to get rid of that one. So now I'm having this arpeggiator play, but the rate, the speed of this one changes because so you can create movement over time. That's really why I love Envelope and LFOs. You can create all that movement in it. So the other one is the Cyclic Envelope. Cyclic Envelope, you go here, Cyclic Envelope, you want to assign it, let's say, to pitch, for example. You want to click on it. So you hear the movement, you put it in envelope. So you hear it go up and down, okay? See, it's not useful. It's just an example to show you the movement, okay? The hold is how much it's going to hold somewhere. This is a normal ADSR right now. Attack, decay, sustain, release, and the amount, okay? If you don't like this, I can hear people scream. I will go into the filter instead. Cutoff, and it's going to be okay, you hear the movement. Perfect. Now if you put it on run, what you have here, you have the falling time, the rise time, So it's an LFO. But you can create kind of a sawtooth or a triangular. So you can have a different speed for up and down. Okay, you can even have a hold in it. Okay, so the movement can be a lot more complex than an LFO because you can change the shape, but also you can go further by pressing Shift and using this to change the shape of the attack and the shape of the fall. It can be rounded off. Okay, so it creates a different movement. That's the run version, and then you get the loop version. The only difference between loop and run is it's in free run mode, so it will run by itself all the time. Whereas in loop, it will re-trigger. If you trigger a key, it will re-trigger the envelope, a little bit like this envelope. So the loop will start again when you press a key. So the movement will be the same at the beginning of the note, whereas this one, you're going to kind of get it where you are at. Okay, you just get the note where it is, the movement. You're re-triggering the envelope. That's the difference. That's it. That's how you use an LFO and an envelope. Basic stuff. Now, of course, you can have a lot more to this if you start to explore. In some cases, you can really assign envelopes to whatever you want in the synthesizer, or envelope to whatever you want. I personally love to have about 3 envelopes, you know, envelope for the volume, envelope for the filter, and an extra envelope you can assign to whatever you want. It could even be for reverb value. It could be for, you know, that's really cool, or a pulse width modulation. Same thing with the LFO. I would love to have in most synthesizer at least 3 LFOs, which is not the case. And often you have 1, sometimes 2, and sometimes the second one is less powerful than the first one. So it happens often. So in my case, I would love to have 3 oscillators, 3 LFOs and 3 envelope. That would be kind of the minimum to really give life to your sound. So it means that you create a loop, a pattern that plays back, and you can have 8 bars of it and they never sound the same because you're always changing over time each of these parameters. And again, they can be sync to MIDI or not, and that's where it becomes really interesting to create movement and life into your sound with LFOs and envelopes. On top of that, you could have other things like motion record and stuff like that, but basic stuff, envelopes, LFO, that's how you do it. That's it. If you like what I'm doing, thumb up, click the notification bell, share it with your friends. If there's anything else you want me to talk about or to demo, write it in the comments. And that's it. See you soon. Cheers.